talk about Graeme fucking Souness for a second. Hell of a player, disgrace of a pundit. Graeme, you're talking utter bollocks. What I'm trying to say is, what is it about the players that Graeme Souness decides that he's got a problem with? What is it about the certain players that he really decides he's going to start digging out? Is it just because they play for Manchester United? So Graeme Souness, I've got a message for you. You are an irrelevant, bitter, biased old fuck, and I wish you would fuck off our TV screen.
Time and time again, Graeme Souness has gone out of his way to criticise Paul Pogba. This borderline harassment that's happening with Graeme Souness. I can't remember the game, but there was a game recently where the host on Sky Sports had to literally tell Graeme Souness, stop talking about Paul Pogba, he's not even playing today. Why are you bringing up Paul Pogba? The constant criticism of Paul Pogba, it's obsessive. You had fuck all to say on numerous different occasions when other midfielders have had a bad game. What is your issue with Paul Pogba? Right then, this is the third video I have done on this topic, and honestly I feel like I'm going to end up doing even more of these videos on this topic. Paul Pogba versus Graeme Souness. This is getting boring now, isn't it? Ahead of the City and Spurs game, Graeme Souness set himself up for a massive fall, and then was never held to account by anybody on Sky's team at all. And honestly, I stayed tuned in, and maybe that was what Sky wanted, but I stayed tuned in to after the City and Spurs game to see exactly what he had to say about Jack Grealish's performance. Do you know what he had to say about Jack Grealish's performance? Nothing. It wasn't brought up by anybody. Now, ahead of the game, he said this: for me, the star of the show was Mason Greenwood. Micah Richards replied with, Pogba's had 4 assists. And Souness said, well, I expect that from a £100 million man. Right. Pogba's transfer fee was 89 million for starters. Drew was a £100 million man. Jack Grealish. Now, I don't think it would be fair to criticise Jack Grealish on the back of that performance from City yesterday. I tell you who got it wrong, it was Pep Guardiola. Everybody could see that Pep and Sterling and Grealish were going to occupy in that team the same space, except Pep. And he does that without really playing anyone down the middle as well. Gundogan, I think, was the most, outside of Sterling, the furthest player forward in the centre of the pitch. I don't think it'd have been fair to criticise Jack Grealish for that performance. But I also wouldn't have criticised the guy that got 4 assists. Or said, well, it's just like, yeah, you expect that from a £100 million player. Grealish and Paul Pogba never picked their fees. You can still put in a good performance that's noteworthy. There's only 6 other players that have put in that sort of performance where you've provided 4 assists in a single game. It doesn't happen often. It's noteworthy when it happens.
And if we're being honest, consistency has probably been one of the factors that goes against Paul Pogba in his Man United career. But when a man produces 4 assists on day 1 of the season,
you got to give it up. You got
to just put your feelings to the side, and say, you know what, well done, played, and what, because it doesn't happen often. How many players have we had in the Premier League? How many of them have produced 4 assists in one game? 6.
Graeme Souness' unrealistic expectations of Pogba, who generally plays a bit of a deeper role, shows he doesn't understand. Honestly, I'm tempted to say he doesn't understand football, but he clearly doesn't understand the impact of the role that Paul Pogba plays. Pogba's return to playing on the left last season and so far this season shows the attacking prowess that Paul Pogba has got. Last season, his stats, he had 0.28 through balls per 90, puts him in the 93rd percentile, one of the best in the world. 12.43 passes under pressure per 90, 97th percentile, genuinely elite. 2.13 dribbles completed per 90, 95th percentile. And 3.51 puts him in the 96th percentile. Oh yeah, he also won 2.61 aerial duels per 90 as well, which puts him in the 94th percentile. Top 6% of people in world football doing that. Such a high dribbling rate from midfield helps United move the ball up the pitch, helps United move it easier, helps hold on to the ball at times when you've got someone who can do that. It draws players to him, it frees up space for other people. He does that with a great passing range on top of that as well. And the fact that he's 6'3" and an absolute unit when it comes into this, he's a real strong physical and aerial threat and presence in United's team. His ability to play anywhere across midfield in an 8, a 10, or even as like an inverted winger on the left-hand side makes him a really valuable asset for Manchester United. He's United's bar raiser, and he lifts the team when they're in tough periods. I think it's fair to say that we've lacked genuine consistency of elite performance from Paul Pogba in his period at United, but he's also had some quite consistent runs of being... Rarely do you get the 10 out of 10 performances, and when they do, they're standout. But you often get really good performances from him. Now, he had a toxic relationship with Jose Mourinho. But in that toxic relationship with Jose Mourinho, he led the team in goals, assists, take-on, fouls won, passes into the final third, chances creations, possessions won. When people talk... and certainly when Graeme Souness talked about the Kane situation, he based it through his sources. He doesn't jump the gun in his assessment of Kane, but he comes to a conclusion of Paul Pogba every time something happens regarding him. And in a situation like this, where Paul Pogba, regardless of what's going on off the pitch, you would objectively look at Paul Pogba's performance on the pitch. It was a fucking brilliant performance. He created 5 chances against Leeds. 4 of those led to assists. Not one of those assists was a 2-yard tap-in, something that the anti-stats brigade kind of bring up, that an assist would technically be you passed it sideways 2 yard and then someone went and beat an entire team and buried it. Not one of those assists was like that. Every single one of those was a genuine defence-splitting ball which led to an attack which clearly wasn't even on when Paul Pogba received possession. Now, I don't think he's ever really had a team built around him. He's always been another player in a team. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. But when faced with the same sort of criticism that Kane's not even faced, the circumstances for him could have easily been better for him reaching a Champions League final with his team. Pogba showed he doesn't bottle a chance when he's been in finals with United. Harry Kane can't say the same thing. The treatment of Paul Pogba from Graeme Souness is baffling. And is just a complete and utter blind spot, which I'm glad Micah Richards pulled him up on Sunday, but he didn't pull him up enough, particularly, I mean, Micah Richards obviously being a City legend, whatever that means on the back end of this, there's got to be something that comes back. And I understand he's not going to try and dig out Jack Grealish and go, hey, where's your criticism of Jack Grealish after what you said about Pogba earlier? But you, Graeme, when you set the bar as a £100 million player, even when he's not a £100 million player, you expect 4 assists. Well, Jack Grealish was 4 assists short of 4 assists at weekend. So where's the criticism? People talk about Pogba's attitude and this, that, and the other. And honestly, I think that he's on the way out, and I think it's whatever Mino Raiola says is with his permission. Gary Neville's nailed that a couple of times. But you can be objective and separate what's going on with the player who seemingly does want to leave Old Trafford and the guy that pulls the shirt on for 90 minutes and puts in a truly world-class performance in the Premier League. And then to have the temerity to say, show us your fucking medals. Where's your fucking World Cup, Graeme? Because Paul Pogba's got that in his back burner. Unbelievable. Now, obviously, like I said, this is the 3rd video I've done on this. It blows my mind, the treatment of him. It blows my mind that Graeme Souness, with some of his opinions, even employed by a major network. Absolutely mind-blowing. I can't remember one insightful thing that he said. Not one. Is he on there purely to rile people up and make other people make content like this about him? In which case, sweet, yeah, I fell for it. But I honestly don't know what Paul Pogba has to do. Now, my own opinion, I reckon Paul Pogba probably runs his contract down. Am I happy about that? No, I'm not. Am I defending Paul Pogba doing that? No, I'm not. I'm talking purely about the guy had 4 assists at weekend, was sensational. And Graeme Souness just shrugged it off like it was nothing. I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's acceptable from a major broadcaster like Sky. I don't think that's acceptable for someone that's supposedly a subject matter expert, which is technically what Graeme Souness is meant to be. The arrogance of the guy, that put your fucking medals on the table thing. And Graeme Souness saying, I've got a big fucking table. Who gives a fuck? Absolutely. Just, I have no words for it. It's fucking mental, innit? Anyway, let us know your thoughts on it. One, do you think Pogba's going to stay? Because I would love him to stay and commit to Manchester United. I would genuinely be very, very happy with that. And two, do you think Graeme Souness will ever sort his fucking napper out with him? Because that needs to happen as well, doesn't it? Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.